What's your dirty little secret? Father of all daughters here, all in their teens. I do the grocery shopping and cooking. When I go to the grocery store on Sundays, I always go to Wegmans just before lunchtime. I go to the sub-making station and order a sandwich, and then I sit all by myself and eat it while looking over sports stuff on my phone. It's just a little bit of quiet me time, and no one in my family knows I do it. I know. I'm a real savage, lol. Edit. I guess I should have said father of only daughters. LOL. It's interesting how you carve out that time for yourself. Sneaking in a little break away from the family is smart. Wegmans is a solid choice for sandwiches too. Just some moments for yourself while doing all the family duties. It's kind of a nice routine. Everyone needs a little quiet time now and then, even amidst family chaos. A guy at my old job gave me a scratch-off lottery ticket. So I'm sitting alone in my cube, and I scratch it. It's a $10K winner. Now, we have the obvious situation. Do you jump up and yell that you won, and then comes the awkward part of the gift of wondering if you're going to split it? Or do you say it wasn't a winner and avoid the drama? Coworker stops by and asks if I scratched it yet. I hadn't made up my mind on what to do yet, so I said no. He left. My heart is beating like crazy. Did I just win 10 grand? Yeah, I'm going to just say it wasn't a winner next time coworker drops by. I'm looking at the ticket and consumed by possibilities. I feel kind of like Gollum at this point. I turn it over to see how to redeem it. And yeah, it was a prank ticket. Thank God I saw that before he stopped by again. I would have looked like such an asshole. And I would have been. That's a pretty intense moment. You think you've hit the jackpot, and then it turns out to be a prank. Yeah, avoiding that awkward conversation with the coworker seems like the right move. Keeping it cool makes sense. Glad you checked before anything went down. Gollum vibes definitely fit that kind of situation. Just obsessed with what could have been. Better luck next time, I guess. Before my husband and I were together, we had a pumpkin soup making contest a few years in a row where we would swap flasks of pumpkin soup around Halloween time. It was pretty wholesome. Yes, we were in love and didn't know it. Anyway, I was eager to impress, and while my pumpkin soup tasted great, it was a weird green color, so I added a couple of drops of concentrated orange food coloring. He remarked on how amazing it was that I got it so orange and how much he loved it. I didn't tell him. I then had to put food coloring in my pumpkin soup every year hence. He looks forward to pumpkin soup night, and we make a big thing of it, and it's one of our favorite traditions. I still have to put food coloring in to get that orange color he likes. I'll never tell him. That's kind of funny. You went through a lot just to keep up appearances. It sounds like a nice tradition though, even if it's a bit based on a little deception. Keeps the fun going each year. At least you both enjoy it, even if he doesn't know the whole story. Sometimes it's the little quirks that make a relationship unique. And blind in one eye was born that way. The eyeball itself is fine, but my optic nerve never fully grew. You wouldn't know it from looking at me. Only one person has ever figured it out without me telling them. My family and close friends know, but I tend to hide it from bosses, co-workers, etc. Honestly, it's more just something I'm so used to that I hardly think of it. I don't know any differently, so I've adapted to it perfectly. Edit. Wow, I'm surprised how many people there are like me. I think that's cool. I always thought what I had was exceptionally rare. Cheers to all my fellow Cyclops and people with different levels of blindness. I don't normally share my little secret, but I'm glad I did here. It's interesting how you navigate life with that experience. Adapting to something since birth can shape your perspective in unique ways. It's good to see you connecting with others who understand your situation. Sharing personal experiences can create a sense of community and support. Sounds like you've got a solid grip on it, which is nice. Overall, it's great that you feel comfortable sharing this part of your life. I went on a hiking trip with 3 friends to Tenerife to explore the island's natural parks and the Tide volcano. We were planning on a hard hike, 1,300 m elevation gain. For the 3rd day after 2 days of long, but not too difficult hikes, average gain 600 m. We told some of our friends about it, and they were impressed by our commitment. On the 3rd day, we arrived at the hiking spot, and after the first 400 m, we decided to go back and get a cable car to the top of the volcano. We faked pictures and all agreed on a version of the story to make it look like we did it for real to friends and families. We literally called that our dirty little secret. No regrets. Sounds like a chill trip. You tried the hard hike, but decided to take the easy way out, which is fair. Getting a cable car makes sense, especially after taxing days. Faking pictures is a clever way to keep the story intact. It's nice you all had a plan and shared that little secret. Sometimes it's just about enjoying the moment without the grind. No regrets is the right mindset. I have hyperacusis, or golden ears, essentially crazy Superman hypersonic hearing. Dog whistles, yup, can hear them. That stupid chiller bearing that's squeaking in the data center. Yup, I hear it. Oh, you whispering across the room. I get every word. Fine, put your earbuds in, and I can still hear the music. I have to sleep with hearing protection because I can't easily filter out anything, though I found a white noise of the humidifier in the winter helps. I wear loops at times with the strongest blockers in, and it makes the world more manageable. When I was in my early 20s, I had to get my hearing tested for a job, and I remember I just kept raising my hand, and eventually a guy came in and said, "Okay, you just raise your hand for sounds that dogs would have a hard time hearing." Now into my 40s, my hearing has dulled a bit, but not much. I do have to say, the death of the CRT was a life changer for me. That's an interesting situation to be in. Hyperacusis sounds challenging, especially with so much noise around you. It's good that you found ways to cope, like using humidifiers and hearing protection. It's wild that you can hear sounds that others can't perceive. The change in your hearing over time must be something you've adjusted to. The bit about the CRT is a nice touch, too. As kids, me, my sister, and cousins were playing with matches in our uncle's barn. I had lit the back of an old TV and couldn't put it out. It was barely burning, and I was a stupid kid. I thought it would burn itself out. We went inside the house, and an hour later my uncle came in screaming the barn was on fire. We go outside, and it was completely engulfed in flames. It burned to the ground. I knew it was me that burned it down, but I didn't confess, and we all had took the blame. Luckily, no animals were in it at the time. That's a wild story. Kids can do some pretty reckless things, especially when it comes to fire. It's interesting how you felt the guilt, but didn't come clean. The barn burning down must have been a shock for everyone. Good thing there were no animals inside. Those kinds of experiences can really stick with you. Glad you all got out okay. My parents live across the country, and they are old and never got into online shopping. They dutifully send my daughter a check in the mail for every birthday, Christmas, etc. I always tell my daughter that she can use the money to buy whatever she wants because that is grandma and grandpa's intention. I usually take a picture of the toy or craft kit and show my parents. My secret is that I deposit all the checks in her savings account and I pay for the toy myself. She has thousands of dollars already, and when she's old enough to have access to it, she'll have a nice little head start. Of course, my job will be to educate her on saving and spending so she uses it wisely. It sounds like you have a solid plan for your daughter's future. Keeping those checks and saving the money is a smart move. You're also setting her up with good financial habits, which is important. By showing her the toys and explaining the money's purpose, you're blending the present with her future. It's a nice way to honor her grandparents while also being practical. At a friend's party, hosted at her mom's place, after a couple drinks, felt bloated, wearing pantyhose, underwear, and shapewear. Went into the bathroom and took off some layers, rolled them up and stashed them under the sink. I planned to come back for them before leaving, but completely forgot about it. Fast forward a couple weeks later, my friend mentions that her mom and stepdad were having some marital issues and mentioned her mom suspected he was cheating because, you guessed it, she found some intimates hidden in the bathroom, and I should have said something, but I was so embarrassed and couldn't own up to it. I felt horrible about this for so long. Well, turns out he was actually cheating after him confessing to it after some other evidence came to light. They are now divorced __. This situation is pretty awkward. Forgetting your stuff and then having it cause drama is not ideal. It's kind of a relief that the cheating wasn't your fault, but it's still tough to handle. The whole thing definitely spiraled out of control. Now you have that lingering embarrassment on top of the divorce. Just a messy bit of life that happens sometimes, I guess. In first grade, I had a best friend. We bonded over this book called 1-1 is the Sun, and I used to love reading it. Well, the book went missing, and he blamed it on me. He called me a meanie and said we were never going to be friends again because I stole the book and hid it. I denied it up and down and all over. I promised him that it wasn't me that took the book. He didn't believe me. It was me. I took the book. I hid it. I didn't want to share. Simon, if you're out there, I'm sorry. I was a kid. I wish I could take it all back. You were my favorite friend in first grade. It's a classic case of childhood friendships and misunderstandings. It's funny how easily things can spiral out of control when you're young. You just wanted to keep the book for yourself. It's nice that you're reflecting on it now and apologizing. It's a reminder that we all mess up sometimes, especially as kids. Better to acknowledge it later than to let it hang unresolved. I was an atheist in a Christian rock band from 2006 to 2009. I had the highest morals in the band. Had 3 hits on Christian rock radio top 40 Billboard. Toured America extensively, but didn't make a dime. We played a few Midwest churches on the last tour I did with them. I met very spiteful, hateful, racist, ignorant people. They wanted to take up arms and kill minorities and liberals all the way back then. They would openly say it to our faces. So many, in fact, that I quit the band immediately upon returning. I've never supported a Christian cause since because they all feel like they support terrorism. It sounds like a complicated experience. Being in a band with differing beliefs must have been tough. Those encounters with people who hold such extreme views can definitely leave a mark. It makes sense you'd feel disillusioned after that. Quitting the band seems like a logical move given the circumstances. It's interesting how music and ideology can clash in such real ways. One day, I was flat broke in the grocery store, trying to figure out how to feed my family for 4 more days until payday with $11. I turned into an aisle, and there was a $20 bill on the ground. I just about ran over there and scooped it up and shoved it in my pocket in one swift movement. A wave of relief washed over me, and I felt a tear welling up in the corner of my eye. Just then, a guy my age holding a young girl's hand came around the corner, looking back and forth across the floor, and he asked me if I'd seen a $20 bill on the ground. I heard, "Nope, sorry," come out of my mouth before I could even process a thought. He thanked me and moved on. I heard him say, "Don't worry, we'll find it," as they left the aisle. I took that $20 out of my pocket and stared at it for a minute, and then I put it back in my pocket, bought my rice, beans, and potatoes, and went home. That night, I stepped outside and stared at the moon and thought about life for a long time before I could fall asleep. It's honestly the only thing in my life that I still feel guilty about, and it was over a decade ago. It's a tough situation, finding that money and feeling guilty about it later. The dilemma of wanting to help but being in a tight spot yourself must have been rough. Even after so long, it's interesting how those moments stick with you. It shows how moral choices weigh on a person, highlighting your character. Life has a way of throwing challenges at us, and we just do what we think is best in the moment. Was at a friend's house for the first time as a kid. Had to poop, and they had ran out of toilet paper. It was either call out that I needed toilet paper and be mortified, or use his grandma's decorative towels. So the towels were embroidered and folded, so that it was kind of a trifold with a fancy part facing out. So I opened one of them up, used that, and folded it back up neatly and hung it back up. I immediately repressed that memory. He called a few weeks later asking if I did that, and I vehemently denied it and truly believed I did not. Sorry, Jake. That's a pretty awkward situation. Not much you can do in a pinch. Using the towels was risky, though. It's funny how those things stick with you, even if you try to forget them. Jake probably remembers it better than you think. But hey, at least you handled it like a champ, even if it involved a bit of deceit later on. It's just one of those childhood moments. For most of the school year in 2nd grade, I never did homework and would take a random worksheet from the pile and erase their name and turn it in with mine. Mine would be half finished or just an entirely incomplete worksheet if I had it, and be turned in without a name. Every time there was no name, she would have us stand up as she would rifle through the work, and we would sit down if our name is called. I remember even making sure I would alternate between a few people as to not draw suspicion. I eventually got caught, but only for that last one. She had no idea about the depth of it all. I also feel she never really graded them, because I do not remember having bad grades for that class. Seems like you found a way to get by without doing much work. It's interesting how you managed to avoid detection for so long, using that strategy with names. Getting caught at the end must have been a surprise, but it sounds like the teacher wasn't paying too much attention. Grades can be funny that way. Sometimes it feels like teachers just move things along. I was willingly engaged 6 months shy of 16. It felt like we would have been married 50 years if we had been allowed. We were just that perfect together. We planned to marry at 18 and just tell our parents then. He died a few months later, so we never got to tell anyone. Somehow, I feel weird calling him my fiancé instead of my boyfriend since we were so young, yet all these years later I know I wouldn't want to be married to anyone but him. Feels good to finally say it instead of keeping it inside for years. It sounds like you had a strong connection, even at a young age. It's tough to deal with loss like that, especially when there were plans for the future. It's understandable to have mixed feelings about the title, but your feelings are valid. Sharing that part of your life seems important for your healing. Remembering someone special can bring both comfort and pain. I got in a wreck and am now scared to drive. I have hidden that I'm not able to drive from my entire corporate office for over 3 years. My wreck happened during COVID, so my customers got used to the Teams calls, and I became more productive being able to see more clients virtually than driving all over the place. During the once every 3-month visit, when my manager comes up here to my office, my husband will drive me to my office while my son is driving my car. We will leave my car in the parking lot overnight, and all 3 ride home together. The next day, my husband will drop me off at the office before my manager arrives. I will work late until the manager leaves, and my husband will come pick me up, and my son will come pick my car up, and we will repeat this 3 months later. Sounds like a tough situation. It's understandable to feel scared after a wreck. You've managed to adapt with virtual meetings, which is smart. It's good that you have support from your husband and son for those office visits. Keeping things under wraps for 3 years is a big deal, though. Just make sure to take care of yourself, and maybe consider some driving therapy when you're ready. I was pushing myself up from one of our dining room chair, and one of the arms broke off. I knew my wife would be pissed off about that since these were newer chairs. So I carefully put it back on there. It stayed. A couple of nights later, we were eating dinner, and my father-in-law was sitting in the chair. He got up, and it flew right off. My wife got mad at her dad for that. She said, "Why are you putting your weight on these chair arms? We can't have nothing nice in this house. Someone has to break something." Several years later, her dad passed. And then a few more years after that, we were playing a truth or dare type card game. I confessed. We both laughed about the incident. Then we went into her dad memories after that. Remember when my dad did this, and on and on. It's interesting how moments like that can turn into memories. The chair breaking brought some tension, but in the end, it led to laughter and reminiscing about her dad. Those little incidents often stick with us and create unexpected connections later. It's nice how you both could share a laugh about it years later while reflecting on fond memories. Shows how time can change our perspective on things. At 42 years old, I stumbled into a sugar relationship, and with the funds I earn as a sugar baby, I've been able to retire from my typical 9 to 5. I'm able to cover my expenses, contribute to retirement, and still have a little bit left over, in addition to all of the travel, entertainment, meals, etc. that he covers when we're together. My family and friends think I'm living lean off of savings and being super picky about my employment, when in reality I'm spending my days with my sugar daddy traveling. Sounds like you found a way to make things work for you. It's interesting how different life can be when you change your approach to earning. While it's good to manage expenses and save, leveraging relationships for financial support is not what most people consider. Looks like you've chosen a unique path that suits your needs. Well, I've never heard of this, but I wonder if I have something similar. It's a curse more than anything. I carry loops with me in my purse at all times in case I need them, and wear them often, but they don't really block out as much as I'd like. I don't like being able to hear so many private conversations. It can lead to some very awkward situations. And it's hard to shut out all the noise to enjoy a loud party or a concert, so I just don't go to those. We call it my bat ears or super bad hearing in my family. That's an interesting situation to deal with. It sounds like having that heightened sense can be more of a burden than a benefit. Carrying those loops must be a handy way to manage it, but it's tough when you can't escape the noise. It's understandable to avoid loud places if it makes the experience less enjoyable. I guess it's a unique kind of struggle.